All right, you're gonna have a quick little video on lesson 1, evaluating exponents, to put into your notes for lesson 1. So when we're evaluating exponents, we have 3 main vocabulary words that we're looking at in the diagram that you see on the page. So you have your base, which is the number that is the main number in the problem. You have your exponent. This exponent tells us how many times we're going to multiply the base by itself. And then when we talk about the total unit, 1/2 to the 5th power, that is called our power. So when we write these, we can include parentheses around every single one of them. It helps out a lot with those negative signs or when we have multiple things going on with our power. So we're going to start with number 1. So we know how we have a base number of 3. And then we have 4 times that 3, so we have a power, or an exponent of 4 to make this a power of 3 to the 4th. When we have negatives, we need to be really careful. If the negative is enclosed in a set of parentheses, we know that negative is going to stay with that number. So we're going to keep it in those parentheses first for the base. See, we have it times 2, so we have a power of -6 to the 2nd. You can take this 1 out of the parentheses, so you could write it as 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the 5th. And you can do the same. You can do it with or without with a fraction. So I'll do this one with, so we'll put 1/2 inside those parentheses, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4. When we have negatives, again, even if it's a fraction, we definitely need to include those inside the parentheses if that is the way it is written around the original expanded form of the problem. So this is to the 2nd. When we have a mix of bases that has numbers and variables, we're going to look at the numbers first, list them as a base, 4 to the 2nd power. And then we're going to look at our variables second. So all these variables, so we have an x. That x is listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So we have 4 to the 2nd, x to the 5th. And then we can simplify that further by saying, okay, what is 4 to the 2nd power? So 4 to the 2nd power is 4 times 4, so 16x to the 5th. When we have all variables, we're going to look at variables separately. So we have 3 x's, so our base is x to the 3rd, and then we have only 2 y's, so y to the 2nd. And then here's a mix of both whole numbers and 2 different variables. So 3 to the 2nd for this portion, a to the 2nd, and then b to the 1, 2, 3. Finish that out by doing 3 to the 2nd, which is 9, a squared, b cubed. So products using exponents should be complete, and now you're going to move on to evaluating exponents. So what does it look like when we expand out and work out the solution? So there's some steps and things to remember. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to expand the power. When we expand the power with a positive base, that's going to look like our base expanding 3 times however many the exponent tells us. So 3 times 3. And then we are going to evaluate it by getting an answer. So evaluate to get final answer. The next one has a negative base. So when it has parentheses, we look at it a little differently than when we have no parentheses. So the next 2 examples I'm going to do together, one has with parentheses and one has without parentheses. So let's start with the one with parentheses. You are going to want to expand out the base by keeping the parentheses so that the negative and the 3 are stuck together. So -3 times -3 is +9. And then without the parentheses, we're going to leave that negative on the outside expand our whole number base however many times the power says or exponent says, and then we're going to carry that negative, and then 3 times 3 is 9. So you can see those answers come out quite a bit different, one positive, one negative, when the parentheses are around the negative or not around the negative. And then the last example is a negative base with a negative in front of the parentheses. So what we're going to do is we're going to carry that negative in front over to our answer first. We're going to use a bracket, and then we're going to say, okay, well, on this particular example, this negative 3 is stuck together by parentheses. So we're going to keep it inside the bracket times twice by itself. We're going to close that bracket. We're going to do all our work inside our bracket first. So we're going to bring down that negative, create that bracket again. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. And then we can kind of see that we're going to apply that negative to the very end. So that's going to become negative 9 as our final answer on that one. So really the only things you need to remember for these are expand the power and evaluate to get the final answer. And this is all obviously based upon the exponent at the top. All of these were to a power of 2. And then to be careful with those parentheses, whether they travel with or without the number. You're going to do the practice, evaluate the expressions practice using order of operations, and then you're going to do your check, make sure that gets put into Canvas.